Alright, so today we're going to talk about frequency tables and histograms. A frequency table is a table that takes large amounts of data and breaks the data into smaller groups or categories. And a histogram is a graphical representation of the frequency table and is similar to a bar graph. But there is no spaces between the bars of a histogram. So there's 5 common histograms. The first one we're going to talk about is the uniform histogram. So the uniform histogram has all of the bars are fairly close together in height. So one is not a whole lot greater than the other or a whole lot less than any of the others. A symmetric histogram, you could draw a line right down the middle, and if you fold it together, everything's going to match up directly. And then a skewed left histogram is going to have a majority of the data towards the right-hand side of the graph versus the left, and there's going to be what we call like a tail that kind of trails off towards the left side of the histogram. And the skewed right is going to be the exact opposite, so the majority of the data is going to be towards the left, and then the tail is going to go off towards the right. A bimodal histogram is going to be similar to a symmetric histogram, but there's 2 modes, so there's 2 most common numbers. And then there's going to be, they're almost symmetric. So we're going to create a frequency table, and I'm going to show you how we do that in Excel. So we're going to go to Excel, and I've already taken this data that we're going to look at and ordered it from least to greatest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the range first. So I'm going to hit equals, and then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom half of my data and take the last number minus, I'm going to scroll back up and click on the minimum number, and then I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to give me my range of data, which is 45. And I've determined that we're going to use 6 classes for this data. So I'm going to type 6 and hit enter. And then this is our class width. So to get that, we divide the range by the number of classes we want to use. And then to round, we just want to round up to the next even number, which would be 8. So we want to create the ranges of the classes. So the first one is going to be 5, because that's our least number, our smallest number, our minimum value. Then we're going to add 8 to that, which is going to be 13. And then if we highlight both of these, and then we drag down, we can add 8 to each of these, because Excel is going to recognize that it's a common number. So that's going to give us up to 45. Now to get the upper limits, I'm going to take the second lower limit and subtract 1. So that's going to be 12. And then I'm going to take this next lower limit, subtract 1. That's going to give me 20. You can also see that these are adding 8 as well, which is right because that's our class width. So if I highlight these as well and then drag all the way down, it's going to give us all our upper limits. So then we want our average, right? Excel has a function called average, so you can just type that in and select it. And we can select the 2 numbers we want to use. And then we can drag, and it's going to copy the data straight down. Now for frequency, they actually have a function called frequency in it. So we can hit equals, and we can type frequency and hit tab. Then we want to click on our data array, which is our speeds here. So we're going to copy it straight down. And then I'm going to hit a little comma and scroll back up and do our bin array, which is our upper limits. And then I'm going to close the parentheses, and that's going to give us 6, which is right because we have 3 10s here, a 9, a 7, and a 5, which would all be in our first class. Now, if I wanted to copy this down like all the others, we don't want to copy and start having issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click up here. I'm going to highlight all of our cells. I'm going to highlight this, and then I'm going to hit F2. And then I'm going to hit Control-Shift-Enter, and that's going to copy it all down and give us the numbers we want. Now to do the histogram, we're going to go to Insert, we're going to go to Chart, we're going to hit 2D Column, and that gives us our frequency. So I'm going to change the chart title real quick, and that's going to be Speeds on North Franklin Street. Now, we can title the axes later, but what we want to work on here is these aren't our classes. We want the midpoint to feature our classes. So if we want to edit our row and data, you click, maybe, and then you hit Select Data, and you want to edit the horizontal axis labels, and we can select the midpoint, because that is what we typically label our histograms as. And then you want to change the layout, because we talked about them not having any spaces between. You go and click Layout 8, and that's going to give us what we want. So we can also use frequency tables to find the mean, median, and mode of and range of a given frequency table. We're going to base all of this off of the midpoint. So for the mean, we're going to multiply the frequency times the midpoint of the data and add all of those up together, and then divide by the total number, which is going to be our frequencies here. So it's going to be, the total number here is going to be 920 divided by 24, which is about 38.3 years old. Then for our median, we're going to cut just like we do originally. So we cut out the circles, and that leaves us with a midpoint of 35, or a median of 35 years old. And then for our mode, we look for the most occurring frequencies. So we have 2 6s. So that means we have 2 modes, 25 and 30 and 55. So for the range, we have max minus min, so we just take the midpoints. So 65 minus 15, which gives us 50 years old. So do this one on your own. You can use Excel to create it, and then bring your calculations to class as well.